Hey, you guys. So today I want to pick up the topic of music publishing. Those of you that have been watching my channel know that I often talk about music publishing. I worked for a music publisher for a long time. I have a music publishing deal as a songwriter producer. And because of that, I sort of feel like I have a duty to dispel rumors or get at the real truths about what a publishing deal could or couldn't do for a songwriter. I'll meet songwriters that will ask me questions about publishing or make comments about it that just show a tremendous ignorance. They think that there's just some kind of gold pot at the end of the rainbow. If they can just get that publishing deal, that's it. That's going to be the thing that really sets them up. And while I do agree that a publishing deal is essential at some point in your career, I don't necessarily think it's the right move for songwriters early on. I don't think it's even useful to worry about early on. And I want to talk about that today in relation to an article I just read. So here we go. So I spent a number of years working for a major publisher called Universal Music Publishing. I got there by starting in the 90s. When I got out of college, I started working for a publisher called Rondor Music, which was an independent publisher. Around 1999 and 2000, Rondor was purchased by Universal. So I spent several years working for Universal Music before I kind of took off as a producer. My job was running the production department, which had to do with all the incoming songs, dealing with the songwriters, song splits, setting up sessions. And then when my career took off as a songwriter and producer, I signed a publishing deal. So I have the perspective of seeing how it sort of functions behind the scenes with a music publishing company and dealing with it as a published songwriter. So I want to show you an article that I recently read. I really don't want to even point out the author. If you go do some digging, you can figure out where this came from. But I want to use this article to show how there's this sort of perpetuated misconception about publishing deals, how they're just the end all to making your career, how that they're just going to make your life perfect if you can get one, if you can tie in with a music publisher. So let's look at it. All right, so this is an article that came from the BMI sort of weekly news blast they send out, different articles and things that can be very useful. But in this article that discusses a number of tips for songwriters, there's a section called Align with an Effective Publisher. It says, for non-performing songwriters, writers whose goal it is to have their songs recorded by artists other than themselves, it has always been important to work with a skilled publisher. Okay, I'm just going to take license with the word always. I feel like when I read something like this, this feels like information from the 70s or 80s. But once you get into the 90s and especially the 2000s up to date, I think that is definitely a misleading sentence. I'll get more into that in a second. He says, I can only think of a handful of non-performing songwriters who have forged ahead and maintained a successful career without the support of a music publisher. And it has now become more important than ever. So I disagree with that sentence. I don't think it has now become more important than ever. I think the truth is that this is very dated information, that this was true at one point, but it isn't near as true today as it once was. I do believe, again, once you sort of get to a certain point in your career where things are in motion, especially if you have money that's being generated internationally, a publisher being able to go out there and fish that money out and bring it back to you. I've said it before, I believe that the most important part of what a publisher does for you has to do with collecting your income, which gets me back to my main point, which is until you are a writer that is generating income, a music publisher isn't going to care about what you do. They're not going to want to develop you. They're not going to want to get behind you and champion you. And I don't want to be overly negative about that. I just think that it's very important that you understand that so you can understand where you probably should focus your attention as an up-and-coming songwriter or music producer. I truly think there are great positive opportunities for you to build your career. I just think that writers and producers need to get it out of their mind that somehow going to Los Angeles or Nashville or wherever and finding a publisher that will champion them, that's a pipe dream. It's just not realistic until you start moving your career on yourself. So going on, it says, in addition to the administrative functions such as issuing license and collecting and distributing mechanical royalties, ideally, publishers develop their writers' skills and have the necessary relationships, not only to get their writers' songs into the hands of the decision makers, but to get writers hooked up to collaborate with recording artists, producers, and other successful, well-connected writers. Okay, first of all, the administrative functions of a publisher are key, no question about it. But that's going to be most important when you have a lot of songs going on, when you have a lot of income that's being generated. Ideally, publishers develop their writers' skills. Okay, I have well over a decade of time in working in music publishing, and there has never been one single case that I have seen where a publisher has taken the slightest initiative to develop a writer's skills. There's nobody in a publishing company, first of all, that has the skill to teach somebody else how to write a song. They just don't do that. They're business people. They don't teach you how to write songs. So what really, sort of the underlying concept there would be that hopefully they would put you with other people so your skills would be enhanced. But I can promise you, they do not put songwriters in the room with other producers or songwriters so they can hone their craft or learn their skill. That just doesn't happen. What they need is to be able to put a songwriter in the room that is going to kick ass and write something amazing. They don't want to train you. They want you to be trained already. He goes on, and they have the necessary relationships, not only to get their writers' songs into the hands of decision makers, but also to hook you up with collaborations. Okay, that part is 100% true. A good music publisher, not just ideally, I mean, if you've got a music publisher at all, period, if they can't do that, then they're in the wrong business. So most music publishers absolutely have the power to hook you up with other songwriters, other producers, and to get you involved in writing for major artists, get your songs connected with record labels, things like that. That's what they should do. The question is, do they do it? And the truth is that sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. Most of the time, you have to be a songwriter that's really on the radar, that's really generating income, that has a buzz around town. You have to be somebody that is actually already, as I've said, in momentum. Then they do. And so expecting that you're going to sign on with a publisher as a new songwriter, come in and they're just going to make your dreams come true, that just isn't realistic. Okay, publishers typically have access to film and TV music supervisors and may be able to procure assignments for their writers. That's what a publisher does. They have great connections. It may be able to procure assignments. Okay, let me clarify what that really means. Once in a great while, you may get an actual assignment to write something for film or television. Most of the time, those kind of things probably go to major artists. So they have a major artist they'd like to tie in with. They ask them, do you want to write a song for this? And it would be something that would be used maybe in a really sort of big usage for a film, television. But the more common thing that will happen for the average songwriter and producer with regard to licensing opportunities is a publisher will take your existing songs. First of all, they'll decide, based on this pitch, what does this pitch need, what style, what genre, what lyrical topics, and they'll go through their catalog of stuff. And if you have a song in there that fits what they're trying to pitch, then they'll take one of your existing songs and they'll pitch it out with a group of songs to that music supervisor. And if the music supervisor loves your song, then you might have a song that goes in film, television, commercial, something like that. All right. Additionally, well-connected publishers can secure a coveted spot for their writers in the song camps that are becoming more prevalent. Okay, so song camp. If you're not familiar with that phrase, they started these things around Los Angeles where you call them song camps or writer camps. Maybe there was a studio with a producer or 2 or 3 producers that were going to be camped out for several days, or maybe a couple of weeks, where they just file in any number of songwriters. There might be 4 or 5 songwriters in any given room, in any given session, over a period of hours, writing a song for this artist. For instance, with Rihanna, they might say, okay, we need some songs for this record, and they would set up camps all around town, and they would just file in as many writers as they could and get as many songs as they could. And I remember with one of the Rihanna records, in particular, several years back, they must have accumulated over 200 songs. But these song camps are still pretty popular. They still happen. And I will say that they are coveted positions because, again, unless you are an established writer that is already in momentum, it's tough to get in the camps. At the song camps to which I'm referring, top writers convene with the intent of creating hit songs for a specific artist's project. All right, so this may be one of the most honest moments in this paragraph about publishers when it refers to top writers. That should say something to you about the intent of all of this information. Really, it applies to people that have already moved themselves up the ladder. So to finish this section, he says, for these and many more reasons, I advise non-performing songwriters to set their sights on an exclusive song publishing deal. Let me just tell you that once you get to the point where you are probably going to get a publishing deal, it's not going to be something that you have to go out and fight for. You're already going to be in a place where publishers are just ready to work with you. You have songs that are in momentum. You have something that's placed. There's income being generated, and it needs to be collected. You've got a buzz around town, so people like working with you. Maybe you've got a good name for yourself. All of these things are the kind of things that a publisher is looking for so they can help exploit and develop your career and make themselves money. So really the idea of having to go out there and work hard or kind of hit the streets and find a publisher that's willing to work with you, you know what? By the time you get to that point in your career, it's going to be a sort of a natural part of the process to get involved and find a publisher that will work for you. The best way to get an exclusive publishing deal is to write the kinds of songs that are irresistible to publishers, songs that go beyond being perfectly crafted, songs that push the creative envelope and include unique, fresh elements that will compel artists to choose these songs over ones they could co-write, and those that are pitched by consistent hit makers. Okay, the best way to get an exclusive publishing deal is to have songs that are already generating income and to have your career already in momentum so that a publisher will care. You could be the greatest songwriter. I mean, you are it. You are the golden child. You are the one, the best songwriter on the planet. But if you haven't generated income, then these publishers aren't going to recognize your talent. They're not going to say, oh, these songs are so great, I want to sign you. You have to have some level of momentum. They have to see the potential financial benefit for them as a company. All right, so I've been pretty negative about this guy's article. Almost all of his points are worthwhile if you are a songwriter or producer that has already built some part of your career. Then these points are useful. But if you are not there yet, I'm telling you, there has never been a time where songwriters and producers have more opportunity on their own. I'm telling you that if you look at some of these companies that I've talked about before, Music X-Ray, Song Trader, Taxi, these are the companies that can help get you in those doors. Just a few weeks ago, I made a point about if you're moving to a town like Los Angeles, Get yourself in those circles where you can meet other songwriters that maybe are already a step ahead of you and are already working some sessions with producers around town, and latch on, get into those sessions. There's even really cool events like ASCAP does an expo every year where songwriters just get together listening to panels and things like that. And it's a great place to network and meet other songwriters. All right, you guys, so don't be discouraged. Know that your career is in your hands and you can make it happen. Don't expect somebody else to make it happen for you. Hope this video was useful to you. If it was, please like, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll know when other videos come out. And until next time.